All right, good morning, Doug. Today we want to talk about weird data. Of course, we know we can't really trust any of the information that is fed to us anymore, but still, it's worth commenting on some of these things. And one of the ones I wanted to start with is kind of the bellwether statistic for social unrest, and this is has to do with food prices. Let me see if I can actually share
Hmm.
this. If I could share this chart real quick, let me see if I can do it. Um, yeah, let me know if you can see this, Doug.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the UN's food price index. It's based on global food prices. This chart only goes back till 2016, so we don't see the big spike that happened in, was it 2011? Was the last time it
About
really moved up?
which set off all those riots in the Arab world, Tunisia, Egypt, you name it.
Right. It seems like food prices, when they get high enough, I mean, that's when everything falls apart. If too much of your income goes toward food, or people just can't get access to food, regimes get changed one way or another. So it's pretty
Yeah.
shocking how much this has gone up in 6 months.
And statistics that I've seen, and who knows how reliable they are, but it kind of makes sense, say that rents that are being renewed now are generally up from 20 to 40% from levels of a couple of years ago.
Right. So if we have food prices up essentially, 30 to 40% since 6 months ago, rents up 20 to 40%. Um, what's left for people to live on? I mean, I just don't see
Well, you
how
got,
it possibly can work
listen,
out.
we are entirely too gloom and doomy because we have to look at the good news. And you sent me, this was interesting, a comparison of the reporting from ADP, which is automatic uh, data processing, the company that Ross Perot, ex-presidential candidate, founded many years ago and made $1 billion on, huge company that monitors payrolls and all this type of thing. And then the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it was really rather funny when I opened up these things and looked at them. The BLS reports that wages, oh, well, actually, it was MSNBC was reporting what the BLS had said.
Yeah. Yep.
But,
CNBC actually.
oh, was it? Well, see one, you see them all. But in any event, it was rather ecstatic about the fact that wages were up 5.7% over the last year. So, yeah, that sounds pretty good. But even by their own statistics, the prices are up 7%. And they're really up, I think, more like 15% going on 20%. So you can't really believe any of these things. So it really looks pretty good. Payrolls, surprisingly powerful gain of, despite Omicron's surge. So, okay, 467,000 people more working in January, and they're being paid 5.7% more for the year. Everything looks pretty hunky dory. But ADP points out that there's minus 301,000. Now, this is a real, gives me a sense of cognitive dissonance. One says up 467, the other says down 301,000. Who are you going to believe?
Well, I'm going to believe the ADP over the Bureau of Labor personally.
Well, they probably don't have as much of a political agenda as a government agency does. But anyway, choose the one you want and report the one you want. But it's a gigantic difference. I mean, so you have to, in order to parse these things, you have to dig into the raw data from both of them and see how they're being crunched and how many series of numbers. I don't want to do that, quite frankly. Life is too short. I think the important thing is to point out the huge discrepancy in reporting on the same month,
Exactly.
US non-farm labor.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things, though, Doug, that was interesting that makes me more suspicious about the government's numbers than normal, and I'm normally pretty suspicious about them, but that Jen Psaki, in advance of the jobs report for January, was, in her daily press brief, was really trying to change expectations, to really lower them. Like it sounded like she was setting it up for a bloodbath jobs report, one like actually what ADP showed. But then what was actually released a few days later was gangbusters job growth. And it just doesn't, it seems, maybe they changed a couple numbers at the end to make it turn positive. I don't know, but she was setting the stage for a bad jobs report. She really was. It was very clear. And then all of a sudden you have this one that everybody goes, well, this is validation that Biden's jobs plan is working.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's all very suspicious. And increasingly, I don't trust US government statistics any more than I trust statistics coming from the Argentine government.
Yeah, but when did they go from, well, we're gonna adjust the standards that we measure by to make things look a little better. We change the way we put together our inflation basket. When do they go from that to outright lying about numbers? I mean, when in the government's decline does that typically happen, do you think?
I'd say towards later stages, but it's been going on with the fudging of statistics and the basically done by the redefining of terms.
Hmm.
Like how many types of measures of unemployment are there? At least 8, where people report themselves as I'm not working because of this, I'm not working because of that. It's it's going to get worse, I think.
Yeah, and this is another thing. Just last time we were talking about all the people that the jobs report last time, and was showing that it was lower than expected, and yet the unemployment rate went down. The one that whatever unemployment rate they were touting that month. Then this month, job growth supposedly exploded higher positively, and yet the unemployment rate went up. So
Yeah.
it's all very disorienting. This information, it really is.
And all of this really started in earnest during the Roosevelt regime. Because one of the things that Franklin Roosevelt is most famous for saying is, all we have to fear is fear itself. And they really believe that it's all a matter of psychology. If
Mm.
you believe something, and then this term gaslighting, of course, has come um, into existence recently, where you're told not to believe something. What are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?
Yeah,
You know, people are
exactly.
starting to catch on to this, maybe, or maybe not. But anyway,
But even the idea, Doug, of inflation is much more about, for the Fed, they seem much more obsessed with inflation expectations than inflation.
yes, exactly. Perceptions as opposed to reality. Well,
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense because you can manipulate perceptions much more than you can actual reality.
Hmm.
Anyway, I figure that these statistics are just interesting as signs of the times or perhaps indications of what other people are thinking, but not necessarily indications of reality itself.
Yeah.
So the next thing that I was looking at here is I've been mentioning just a few things that I've been doing. Uh, we mentioned some weeks ago, I said that I was long. People can look it up, whichever one it was, that I was long the VIX, which is a volatility index, when it was around 19, 20, and it subsequently shot up to 30. So that was a good trade. That worked out really well. And
That
of
was
course,
great timing.
got in pretty much at the bottom, didn't get out at the top, you know, too much of a scared little kitty to hold on to something until it runs all the way to the top, but it worked out good. So, for what it's worth, what am I doing right now? Uh, Moderna, which is, of course, a major vaccine manufacturer, um, it's trading at around $165 a share right now, 162, 163, I don't know, something in there, bounces around. But this is kind of interesting. Here we are on the 7th of February, and you can sell let me see, You can sell the 165 calls. Well, I should know because I just did it last week. Got a little bit more because it was last week. But right now you can sell the 165 calls that expire February 25th for $12. That's 2 weeks roughly. To be paid $12 for a stock, in other words, you capture all of that. If the stock does not go above 165, and you make money as long as it doesn't go over 177 within the next 2 weeks. Well, on an annualized return basis, that's gigantic. It's gigantic. Let's see if we can do the numbers. 2 weeks times 12, 26 times 12. You're getting about 200% per year in premium.
Wow.
And the reason, this is interesting in the newsletter business, which we're both very familiar with. There are so many newsletters out there. I suppose a few of our listeners are subscribing to some of them that are option trading services. And these things are almost entirely buying options. But buying options, except that for exceptional circumstances at major turning points, is a fool's game. Because when you buy an option, you have to be not only right, but you have to be very right, because there's a time premium. Example here, Moderna, which is running against you. Somebody's paying a 200% per year premium to guess that it's going to go over $177 per share by the time the options that I sold expire February 25th. Well, maybe it will, and I'll lose money on it. But listen, I'm acting as an insurance company. I'm acting as the casino, not the gambler at the casino. But the problem that I have in mentioning things like this is that you can't sell options on either stocks or commodities, frankly, unless you have enough capital to effectively be an insurance company or a bank or a casino, because you're playing the law of large numbers. And anything can go wrong that can break the bank. But most people buy these options and they get their heads handed to them because it's worse than playing blackjack, much worse than playing blackjack in the casino, much worse than playing roulette, where you have 36 numbers plus a zero and a double zero. So if you do the math, I mean, you can see what the house is making. This is much worse. So anyway, I mentioned these things. So I think eventually Moderna ought to go bankrupt, frankly, being in the vaccine business with all the things that are coming out on COVID and the vaccines. What did you mention earlier about the Defense Department and Senator Johnson?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me actually share this this site here real quick. 1 second. So basically, there's some pretty. And again, you can't trust any data coming from anywhere anymore. I don't believe anything, but it's interesting to see. So this is a blog post here from Steve Kirch's website, his Substack, and he essentially is talking about some defense medical epidemiology database, which should be the cleanest database out there because the military has got a very controlled environment and all the data is collected effectively. And supposedly some of this was leaked, and that's how we have it now, as I understand it. And there are some crazy things in here. You see something, find this one, if I can find this one chart in particular. Yeah, it's this shows the number of pulmonary embolisms reported by year. And these increases are just absolutely shocking since the vaccine mandates, started to be rolled out in the military. It's hard to, if the data is right.
Right.
Yeah. You just can't know. Again, we cannot know. I wish we could, but we can't not seem to know if any data anywhere is accurate about anything. But here goes the lists of increases, these different diseases detected by, within this data set. Now, if this is true,
hypertension up 2,000%, diseases of the nervous system up 948%, neoplasm. These are big numbers. These are
big numbers. And if this, you'd think if something like this were true, it would immediately mean the ceasing of all use of these vaccines. So you just assume that would be true. If it were true, that would happen because this is so shocking. Um, so then if you're being rational, you think, well, this must not be accurate data because these numbers are just so wild. They're so over the top. It can't possibly be true. But I'm inclined to think that there's a good chance this data is true because, you know,
Because we have so much more evidence, a lot of it just anecdotal because these things are shut down and controlled. You can't talk about them, you can't report them. But yeah, it's all very suspicious. Anyway, there's some senator, I think his name is Johnson. I don't keep
Ron
track of it.
Johnson,
Yeah,
Ron
these might be,
Johnson.
yeah, whoever it is. I think it's that. It's got to be a Republican. Wrote a letter to, oh, well, I guess Church has reproduced it here. Right,
Yeah,
okay.
he wrote a letter to Darth Vader himself, Lloyd Austin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, saying, please explain these things by the 15th of January. Uh, is Austin required to respond or not? I have no idea.
I mean, yeah, I don't think he's required to respond, and it'd be interesting to see if he does, because we're talking not far from now. He's got a week or so to get back with the data. So
Perhaps
I don't
Austin
know.
will respond by saying, hey, pal, I can't help you. If you don't like it, write your congressman.
Exactly.
That'll be funny, I think.
Exactly. So this is some data that's very interesting. Also, it's just shocking. I don't who knows what to believe, really. And then there's some other things. I don't know if you saw this former BlackRock executive talking about the increase in deaths as reported by insurance companies. Did you see any of this?
Yes, I have. Uh, but of course, we don't, this is something that's very disturbing about this is that why aren't autopsies being done and reported on suspicious deaths to do with COVID and or the vaccines? Because they're really two different issues we're dealing with here.
True. Yep.
So
Yep. But
I don't
either way, I
see.
mean, whether it's yeah, and I mean, knowing what it is, it could be COVID related, it could be vaccine related, but the fact that the insurance companies who are this is what they do for a living, what they is it's just to dial in the actuarial tables and predict it accurately within a buffer. I mean, their whole business is made or lost essentially on their ability to do that, and for them to be almost across the board dramatically off, like historically off, shows that there's definitely a lot more problems going around than people thought. Whatever the cause is, there's a problem.
Perhaps someone will do some research, and it might be interesting to speculate on the bankruptcy of some insurance companies if this thing gets totally out of control. I'm not willing or interested in doing that myself. I'm happy to be short Moderna calls for the huge premiums that I can get. Because by selling calls, I don't have to be, all I have to make money, all I have to be is not very wrong. That's a lot different from buying options where you have to be very right. So for what it's worth. But the insurance companies could be in trouble because of this. Who knows?
It could be. Yeah.
Time will tell.
If anyone watching this has any information on the insurance companies and the reported results, you want to share them in the links or in the comments of the video, I would love to see them.
Okay. Oh, there's one other thing. Well, a couple other things I mentioned in the past. A couple other mentions. I mentioned this company, Cryomass, in whichever episode we talked about it. And I still think people should write in for the report that Jeff Berwick did on it, which explains it. Pure speculation, but one with big potential. So stock's trading at around 25, 26 cents Canadian. Hasn't gone anywhere, except kind of down. But this is the month when they're supposed to start launching a public awareness program. Will they? They can't tell. Will it work if they do? Who knows? But anyway, is the company's basic technology going to work? Well, once again, who knows? So I hate even mentioning things like that. There's another company, though. I'm doing one of the largest private placements that I've ever done, and this is what in one a mining stock called Osisco, arranged by our friend, and I get nothing for mentioning this, but I'll just tell you, you'll have to do your own research. They're doing a private placement at $3.50 with a detachable, which is to say separately trading warrant that's good for 5 years. Stock is trading at around 450. So you're buying it way under the market. Great piece of paper. And the results that Osisco has been releasing, and the story, Marin puts this together very well. It's this could be genuinely explosive. It's his largest personal possession. I think he's put $10 million in it personally. So he's a
And
believer.
this is what's the ticker on that one, Doug? Do you know? Is it because there's a couple of Cisco's? They're Toronto, right? They're traded on the Toronto Exchange.
It's a Canadian stock. These are Canadian dollars I'm talking about, I think.
Yeah, 470. That's what I see. It's OSK .to. OSK.to.
OSK. Yeah. Okay. Great. Anyway, that private placement's available to accredited investors, which is to say people that have, what is an accredited investor these days? Somebody with a liquid net worth of over $1 million, I believe.
Yeah, and or earning $200,000 or more,
For the
3 out of the
last
last
7
5 years, something like
years,
that.
something
Yeah,
like that. Anyway, consult your lawyer and tax professional. I mean, but
yeah.
anyway, I put 7 figures into this thing. Well, we'll see if it works out or not. It's a good piece of
Cool.
paper. It's a great story. And I think we're moving into a gold bull market and a super bull market for these mining stocks, which are actually quite cheap. So there's a tout. Everybody
Yeah.
likes touts.
All right. Well, the I don't know how to talk about the mining video you sent me, mining
Oh,
related.
yeah, this is kind of a great segue, mining to tunnels, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's this friend of mine from Aspen who he's a rich guy. We used to play poker together. Anyway, he's got a lot of money. He's kind of a Republican maniac, and he's very into conspiracies. So he sent this thing out to me. We can probably forward the link. Put the link
Actually,
down there.
I can play it right now if you'd like me to on the screen.
Might get us. You think it might get us banned if we do that? Maybe we should just put the link there so people can look at it.
Let me just play a little bit of it to give people a sense.
Okay. There's a couple things.
I don't think it gets banned. Yeah, it's not like vaccine misinformation. So
Right now, there are 131 active underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,477 of them worldwide. Each one has an average cost of 17 to 19 billion.
I'll leave it there, Doug. But people can get a sense of what that is. We'll put a link to the video so people can watch it if they'd like.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, short video, 5 minutes or something. But you know, the person that appears to be speaking, we don't know who he is or anything about him, says there are, what did he say, 131 of these deep underground bunkers in the US that seem to be like a cubic mile of a piece, and they cost an average of $15 billion a piece. So there's 130 of them in the US. Anyway, the map that he put up there in that video, well, there's not 130 of them to start with. And the location of some of these things don't make any sense. If you study that map, I looked at the map for the US, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. How can you move a cubic mile of dirt and not have the local neighbors start wondering, well, where do you put all that dirt once you move it? That's a lot of dirt. That's actually a mountain's worth of dirt is what it is. I mean, a real mountain's worth of dirt.
Yeah.
You know, and then he says, and there's 1,400 of these underground facilities around the world. But the map that he shows about, I don't know, what, 50 or 60 of them. And they're in oddball places that just don't make any sense, because how are you going to get the technology to goofy places that it shows up? Anyway, who knows? This could be one of these really tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. On the other hand, anything's possible in today's world. And what was that book that we both read a couple of years ago?
Yeah, we did a review of it earlier. I guess it would be last year. It's called Raven Rock, and essentially what it was is it was like all about the continuity of government facilities that had been established and built into these huge tunnels, essentially, to be able to withstand a nuclear blast. And they clearly put enormous amounts of time and energy into building some of these somewhere. We know that for sure.
Yeah. It just, well, but of course, tunnel boring machinery has advanced a lot in capabilities over the years. So maybe they are doing it. But just the amount of dirt that has to be moved seems to me to make it unfeasible to keep it quiet. Anyway, that's a rumor that's out there. None of my friends in the mining business have heard about these massive tunnel borings.
Yeah,
and they're kind of subject.
Yeah, and they'd love to have access to this equipment that can do this sort of thing, make their jobs a little easier.
But then again, Elon Musk has 4 companies. Everybody knows about Tesla. Everybody knows about SpaceX. But he's got 2 others. One is Neuralink, which is to tap into the brain and download and upload things directly from your brain. Don't know how that's doing. But the other one is the Boring Company. So
he seems to be in all the major places, that's for sure.
He's really quite a phenomenon. So I'm sure Elon could give us a definitive answer, but I don't know the man, sadly.
Yeah. All right. So the guy who sent this to you, is he the conspiracy-minded type?
Oh, very much, very much. He's a maniacal Republican, frankly. So you have to sort the wheat from the chaff out with him. But he said, I don't know if this is real or not. It's not like he believes it. He's not crazy, but hope he's not listening to this and doesn't self-identify.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? The thing is, the whole point of all of this, of today's show, basically, is simply that you can't know anything that you can't personally verify. I mean,
can't. And that does not mean verify it on a recording or a video either, because that can all be faked. It's got to be with your own.
Exactly. If you can't apply personal empiricism to it, you cannot count on it being true. And it's a sad state of affairs if that's the case, I think, but it is.
It really is. And especially with all the things that are going on right now in the medical area, it's that I'm afraid that the average person is going to lose faith in not just the science, but actually the concept of science itself when he finds out that he's been defrauded. And that's going to be redoubled when it turns out that, climate change, it's real. It's been around 4.5 billion years. Who can deny that? But global warming, not so much. But, eventually, over a generation, people will figure it out, and maybe science will be, well, actually, as we go into a dark age, it's only natural that nobody believes in science. It's really quite perverse.
It is. Let's see, there was one more thing I thought about mentioning, and it just slipped my mind. Sorry, I can't remember what it is right now. But yeah, it is.
When you find it, you can make a note, and the next time we do this, we can
talk about that. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just leave it there for today, and maybe people can. I'd love to know if anyone has any further information about, especially if you're inside of an insurance company, if you have any insights on whether or not the death rates actually are higher than expected. Any information like that, more firsthand, would be appreciated. Actually, I do remember what it was now, Doug. Just real quick. Emergency powers of governments, and this is kind of unrelated, and we could make this a bigger topic, but This is, I don't know if you've seen that that's what they declared a state of emergency in Ottawa now, which then grants the city vast powers essentially to to control the environment. It's not exactly a martial law like environment, but it is one where they basically have martial law like powers and what they can do. And it seems to be the normal thing now. I mean, there's emergency powers seem to be invoked all the time. And of course, we see with the health stuff over the last couple of years, but anytime things aren't going their way, it's emergency powers. And is this all new? I didn't notice these emergency powers things up until a couple of years ago.
Well, that's, I've actually done some surface research on that. And presidential executive orders have been around since day one. The first presidential executive order, which is an emergency power, because don't forget when Roosevelt illegalized the possession of gold, confiscation of gold, as a matter of fact, for Americans, that was an executive order. It wasn't a law or anything like that. It was an executive order. So they're very powerful, and they've been around since George Washington's day. But there are thousands of the things, and they don't all have to be disclosed. And yeah, I think it's really, really serious. So not that I have any trust in elected representatives of the government. That's a joke. But more and more power is being devolved to the executive. Much has happened, and we'll see a lot more as things get upset. People want somebody to step up and make things better, cure things, straighten things out, a strong man who's got a plan. So we're going to see a lot more of that type of thing. And it'll all be, I guess, legal with executive powers, just like in the Roman Empire.
They'll make it.
Same thing. When it transformed from a republic to an empire, kind of informally, but it happened. Same thing is going to happen with the U.S. I'll bet on it.
Well, it seems like we're seeing it already. Okay. All right. We'll leave it there for now, Doug, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks very much.
Okay. Great, Matt. Thanks.